we used to have these huge scheduling boards, 10 feet long over here, 10 feet long over here, and they have 100 different work orders on them, showing the schedule, and you can see where everybody is, and that it's busy or not busy. You can see it by how many work orders are on the board. And he walks into the office every day and he goes, "Are we busy?" And he has no idea.
If you're anything like me, you believe that some of the best ideas, the sharpest insights, and the most exciting breakthroughs happen not in boardrooms, but over good food and great conversation. I'm Jason Silva, CEO of ServiceEcho, where we made field service management a little less messy and a lot more efficient. Every episode, I'll be sitting down with some of the brightest minds in business and technology, CEOs, innovators, and disruptors who are shaping industries. This is Dinner with Jason Silva.
We're different than anybody else. We don't, nobody pays like that.
And it's interesting that you said that, because I think for a lot of our customers, and in this space, you'll get a software that says we're field service management.
Yeah.
But every business that we've worked with, whether it's like chimney, irrigation, landscaping, any of them, they all have kind of like a unique process in terms of how they charge their customers and how they pay their employees, right? And what's pretty great about ServiceEcho is that we do have that flexibility because we're built on Salesforce.com, right? We have that flexibility of creating custom workflows that either, whether it's through a report or through an actual workflow to get what you want. And I think hopefully throughout this journey, you've seen how we've worked that out. Okay, so let me take it back for a second. I want to get to know a little bit about the journey of A1 Chimney. So as you know, I grew up in a family business, right? I helped my dad with lawn irrigation contracting. And big reason why I started ServiceEcho was because of the paperwork that I had to deal with ever since I was really young. So just curious, tell me about A1. How did it start? I mean, you guys have been in business for a very long
45
time.
years.
45 years. That's incredible.
So my dad started the business the year I was born. Well, actually, he bought it from a guy in Hamilton.
Okay.
And the guy was working in Toronto, and he was getting old, and he wanted to sell it. So my dad bought it for something ungodly cheap. And he developed all the workflows and all of that stuff, and he used to go to the high school and put pins on the bulletin board, and he'd get all these high school kids that would come in between after school and 8 p.m. and they would come in and they would call customers. This is before the do not call list. They used to call there used to be postal code phone books.
Oh, okay.
And they would call out of the postal code phone books, and we would know all the postal codes where there were lots of fireplaces. We'd go, oh, there's a lot here, there's a lot there. And so they would build routes for the guys out of these phone books. And then they built up a customer base, and the customer base was about 40 or 50,000.
Wow.
And so when then the do not call list happened, and so then it became, okay, well, we're just going to work with our existing customers, which we do, and it keeps us busy.
Right.
And then people find us through
referrals
or marketing or whatever, right? And then he had somebody running the office, and she was a real.
I love these characters, by the way, because you can just picture them.
Yeah.
Right? They're very territorial, right?
Yeah.
They have their process and their system, and
so he was a sweep. He would do the sweep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then because there wasn't, so he hired this woman to run the office, and she was just fire breathing, and she would keep everything going, but it became that there was a high staff turnover because she would just eat people alive, right? And then it was rolling, and he was doing well, and then at one point she said she got mad at him for something, and she said she was going to fire him, and he's like, it's my company. So anyway, so a whole thing happened, and then she ended up leaving. And there's like lots of problems, and the company got smaller and started struggling. And then my brother, who was at that time he had gone to university for law, and he was interning at a law firm. And his wife, he had just gotten his wife pregnant by mistake. So he was trying to go to law school, but he was like, I don't think that's going to happen, right? And then I was just getting out of, I used to be in printing. I used to work in printing, which is not a very expanding industry.
Well, yeah, because obviously with the digital. Yeah.
So then I called my brother, and I wanted to get out of it. I was like, okay, this is, I've done what I do, and so I wanted to get out of it. So I called up my brother and I said, let's go handle the company, because he was having trouble. He was having trouble paying his mortgage by that time. So we took over. We downloaded this CRM from 1996 called ACT, and it was based on an Access database. So he had arrived before I did, because I had to wrap up a bunch of stuff where I was, and then and he had typed everything into a spreadsheet as much as he could. He entered a couple thousand people into a spreadsheet.
So what's interesting, like, I think your story, there's two key things there that are pretty interesting. One to me is, you have someone that's running the office and has their own process, but at any time that can change, whether it's personalities clash, and like, what is that unique process or system that makes your business bulletproof? Like, if a key person does leave, right, do you have those proper systems in place? And then the other thing which I think is really interesting, because as much as technology and software are changing everything, when I'm hearing a lot now, and what's really intriguing to me is the idea of like these smaller businesses, like in the trades and services, that the individuals that started those companies up and made them pretty successful and profitable are now getting to that age where, like in a big portion, where they're retiring. So now, like the transition from like the senior person to either, whether it's their family or whether or not they're going to sell it, some of these businesses just like go away, right? Like all that hard work, that effort. Like, with my dad right now, he's obviously kind of like up there in age, but he still kind of does his service work. And the actual transition out of that, like, he wants to sell his business. It's not really easy to find people that are just going to come in and take a business over, right? Especially if you don't have a process, right? Or those key people leave. So, like, those are two things that really, about your story, which is amazing, because here you and your brother are coming in a situation where you're able to take what your dad built and continue the legacy, which I think is amazing. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
I mean, it was not expected at all. But it just sort of happened. And it's sort of like it was a fallback, but at the same time, we then built it. So we had this. So originally, when we first arrived, everything was handwritten on triplicate invoices. So then when we switched over to ACT and
wait, you got a dot matrix printer? Is that what you got?
Hold on. So we wanted to keep a lot of the process. So when we switched over to ACT, we would still handwrite, and then I was like, there's got to be a better way, because this was crazy. Like, it takes 15 minutes to write up an order. It's like,
you add that up, it's quite a bit.
So then there was, thank you. Then there was, so then we got a dot matrix printer. So we did that so that we wouldn't be printing, so that we would keep that half size, and so we'd still have triplicate.
And see, that's the amazing thing when you think about it, because like that triplicate paper only works on a dot matrix printer, right?
Right.
Because of the actual
because
impact.
It has to impact. Exactly. So, and then it sticks together, which is great. And then you have to tear off one of the pieces, right? So
I gotta be honest, like as much as I'm into the digital aspect of things, there is a little nostalgia about like
it's
tearing
pretty
those,
great.
like,
It's pretty
pieces
great.
of paper off, right? But definitely not efficient when it comes to productivity.
It is and it isn't.
Yeah.
It's versatile.
Okay, so yeah, I would love to like double tap on that one for sure, because I think when it comes to transferring over to software, there's a learning curve.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
There's a learning curve, and so a lot of the times when we're going from paper, there's a certain convenience to it, like that physical thing.
Yeah.
Right. But then I think once you really start customizing or getting accustomed to the software, it does certain things that you would never be able to do if you had like sheets of paper. Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, we're scratching the surface of the potential of this.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, like I was looking at it, I was like, okay, well, I can log in from anywhere. Now it's cloud-based, so I can log in from anywhere. So I was like, okay, well, here I am. I'm going to end up going and doing estimates, right? So we created this work order, and the work order creates an opportunity, and da-da-da-da-da. So I was like, okay, well, what if I want to go, what if I'm on the road and I want to look for jobs that were done in the area recently, and I just want to look at the photos of them? Well, I can't do that from my ServiceEcho app. But hey, I got an iPad. I can just go on Safari and log in and see what was done and get that information, right? And I went, okay, well, if I can access Salesforce directly through the app or through the internet or whatever, and I can do all that, then I have like the whole office right here.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, oh. And then I went, oh, you know what? We had switched over to IP phones.
Thank you.
We had switched over to IP phones when like our phone bill was like, it was hilarious. When I first got there was a phone on every desk. It was a single line phone with the big numbers. It was a tall, those tall phones, right? And I was like, my dad was very proud about the fact that he had discovered line hunting.
Okay.
Which is where if the one phone is busy, it'll automatically ring to the next phone, right? And I was like, okay. Like, this is high tech now.
So you're probably going to talk about it a little bit. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we integrated Twilio as well, like alongside ServiceEcho, right?
Yeah.
So like
I'll give you the genus. I'll give you the genus of that. So we implemented line hunting, or he had line hunting, and I was like, no. Because now we had more people in the office. We had me and my brother, and it was stupid to run around to different desks to answer the phone.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to go on Craigslist. This was back when Craigslist was still a thing.
Okay.
And I'm going to buy myself a Nortel phone system.
Okay.
And watch a bunch of videos and install it myself. So went out and you find some company that's gone out of business and they're getting rid of their phone system that they spend $5,000 on. You're going to buy it for $150, right?
That's really smart. Yeah.
So I got 10 phones, so I have replacements, plus this big honking thing that you mount on the wall and you connect to your phone lines. So I ran 5 phone lines into it, and we had this Nortel system.
That's really cool.
And I was like, cool. And that was like in 2013 or something. And then some of the phones died, and they were obviously the hardware's getting old. And so we went, and I had a friend who does IP phones. So I said, what does it take to do IP phones? He's like, oh, it's like $20 a month, $30 a month. I said, how many lines? He said, however many you want. I'm like, okay, let's do it.
And it's amazing. It just shows how technology evolves, right?
So now we're on IP phones. Now we still have a backup hard line, but we'll never use it. And then so IP phones. Oh, now we have IP phones. We could have a soft phone connected to a laptop. And have somebody work from home for the day if they wanted to. And I'm like, okay, that's a possibility. And then like, oh, I want to travel, but I'm always locked down. Well, I could travel, and my wife's from Europe, so I could take the afternoon, start the day at 3 o'clock, you know? And run the office from 3 till 8 or whatever. And
technology is able
to handle that, and I can.
Exactly.
And we're just starting to deal with that stuff, and then now we're taking Square. Originally, we only took check and cash.
Yeah.
We got in there, we only took check and cash. We were like, who writes a check? Who carries cash?
Yeah, exactly. Or how do you trust your, I
mean, homeowners, they're not going to screw you over too much, but
no, and obviously your staff, you're hiring great people, but there are still those situations where you just never know, right?
Yeah, and the way collections would go is we'd only take checks and cash, and one guy would spend a week driving around and collecting the checks that nobody paid. We'd call them to leave them in the mailbox or whatever.
Yeah, why?
How inefficient is this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now we're taking Square and stuff like this, and that's why we wanted to do the Square integration.
And then with Twilio, it's like, more people are on mobile phones, not necessarily tied to like a home phone anymore. So like you want to be able to text them and everything else. Yeah. You should definitely dig into this. Thank you. But so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I did want to ask another question. Maybe we'll just take a quick break here, or just continue.
Well, you can watch us eat. That's okay.
Yeah, no,
we'll just edit out
what I was gonna say is just to get my question in order, right? Okay, so let me just see this next question here. So I think you kind of touched on this a little bit. So maybe yeah, sure. Let me put it over here. Good. So you touched on it a little bit earlier, right? And I probably wanted to dig into this because a lot of our customers actually face this, which is technology brings change. And sometimes that brings certain challenges, right? Obviously we've been working together for a long time. We want to make it perfect. We want to make sure that it gets out there. What are some of those challenges that you faced, right? That you might want to share with other people that might be thinking about this journey?
So the biggest thing that I think I should have resolved earlier is I should have learned a lot more about Salesforce.
Okay.
Because there are things in Salesforce, like Salesforce is basically a pliable technology for anyone, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is that I don't know, but it's based on certain established workflows, like contacts, leads, blah blah blah, opportunities, these types of things. In a business like ours, we don't deal with contacts, opportunities, blah blah blah. We have people that we there's only ever just one.
It's more residential accounts versus commercial accounts in this situation. Yeah.
Exactly. And that whole flow and lead to contact to it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve. It's a little overwhelming, but now we're in it, so we just figure it out as we go, Right. And I think I've always, when I started in printing, it was like in printing keeps a bunch of technology from the past,
Right.
and yeah, there's new computerized things and stuff like that, but a lot of like the basic stuff is still, the technology really hasn't changed, right? So like you have these silver oxide plates, and so they're flexible, and they go on these drums, and they have certain kind of ink and certain chemicals and stuff like that, and a computer will do those things.
Right.
But if you don't understand how it works in the first place, like I started with old machines.
Right.
We just used old machines because they were fully handleable, you know? And I had to, you know, figure out how to do things.
Right.
But you have to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've got a deadline of tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. It's 6 p.m. right now, and I have 20 million things to print, and I had printed it, but then they were like, oh, we want it Z folded. Okay, you want it Z folded. Okay, so then a folding machine goes click, 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 click. And how long is it going to take for, you know, 20,000 pieces to go through that, or 50,000 pieces? You're going to be there all night. And servicing it in between a few thousand pieces. So, you know, you have to learn. You have to look at it and go, okay, what are all the moving parts? How can I make this go faster? And the funniest thing happened is I had another machine with a smaller belt than this one. So, and I would pull the gears over and put a belt on and run it, and it would go, instead of going click, 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 it went
Oh, wow.
but the whole machine was
Vibrating?
They couldn't deal with this speed, right? And you know, I would the capacitor to start the motor wasn't strong enough, so I would have to kick it forward, you know, to get it going. Anyway, but you what I'm trying to say is you have to learn on the fly.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best way.
Well, I think, like, if I could paraphrase what you just told, it was like you basically see the vision, right? Like you see how this is going to really benefit your company, and you understand that in order to get there, there's going to be bumps along the road where I have to get accustomed to the new way of doing things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think you were telling a story earlier about you know, how you were trying to track all the different payments that you were collecting, right? And then on the mobile application, your technician didn't necessarily fill in the correct details.
Right.
So it's even like getting that person that's out in the field, you know, learning and understanding that, hey, by you filling this information in, the office is able to react and adjust accordingly as quickly as possible, right? And so I think that's an important part that we try to tell our customers is, you know, the return on investment here, you know, yeah, it could be bumpy, there could be a little bit of a learning curve when you first get started, but it's going to pay dividends once you've gone through it all. So maybe like we'll target another question in terms of, you know, how you're currently experiencing the new workflow, right, with ServiceEcho. And so if you were to, you know, maybe sum up in one sentence, what's the biggest gain that you think you're getting now with a digitized workforce?
Like the ability to expand.
Scale, right?
Scale.
I love that word, scale, right? So the ability to add more people to your team, make more revenue. I love that.
And
there you go.
Got it? Finish chewing.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab another one then, since Saul's patiently working.
So the thing is I can add people. I can cut down on extra people that were just dealing with BS.
Yeah.
They were just dealing with administration. Like, because the way we did it is the guys would write a note on their sheet, and then I would take that note and I would know what to collect, what not to collect, what to give to somebody to reschedule. And then once that collection or that reschedule is done or the job is done, all of that went to a single person whose sole job is entering the information that people write down, scribble on their sheets.
And was that a challenge, like even reading the handwriting?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I had, when we first started, before we went to Salesforce, when we first started digitizing, I had somebody in the office for a year entering past stuff, just typing up old invoices, just adding it into the database manually. So we're eliminating a lot of work.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's me. Thank you. Do you have malt vinegar?
I do.
Okay.
Can I help with anything else?
Do you have Dijon mustard? Okay, or regular also. Yeah.
Have you heard that new Kendrick Lamar song? There's this never mind.
Tell me.
No, there's this Kendrick Lamar is this hip hop artist, and he has this new song out, and he just yells the word mustard. It's just it's this huge meme now. So yeah, that's why I thought it was funny when you asked for the mustard.
Oh, I love mustard. Mustard's the best.
Every business faces some setbacks, right? Do you have any information to share in terms of some of the setbacks that you've had? Taking the business over from your dad, working with your brother to put these systems in place, and how did you overcome those?
So
awesome, thank you.
Biggest setbacks were so my brother was not, he had done some of the work, but never we were office. So we weren't familiar with the work. We had to get into and then he had to get into the work in order to figure out what to do.
So you're talking about actually learning the trade.
Yeah. So what would happen is, so in 2019 was a bad year. At the end of 2018, our two main technicians, both of whom had been with us for over 10 years, both copped out at the same time. And so we had nobody. We had no delivery people. We had no
people actually doing the physical work. Yeah,
and we had a month's solid schedule. Wow. And we were so we hired, and then we had my brother go out and do it with my dad coaching him on how to do it. And it's feet to the fire,
right? Yeah.
And it was really rough. And we hired a bunch of guys, and all of them copped out.
And so I think you're definitely touching on something. I mean, even I face it in my business, and it's really critical to have a team that helps you execute, right? And finding the right people, putting them in the right position to succeed. I think that is probably, I don't want to overstate this, but I think that's 80% of business is attracting the right talent, and whether it's rewarding them or whatever motivates them that you figure out to keep them on board, right? Is hugely important.
Totally.
Hugely important. Yeah.
I mean, we had one of our technicians ran into another chimney sweep from another company, and or somebody who owned a chimney company, and they tried to poach him, and they basically said, you get a vehicle and you get $16.50 an hour. And benefits and all that stuff.
Is this recently or?
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
And he was like, what are you, joking? Like, so the way we pay our guys and the way we operate is we reward production. So when you complete a job, you get paid for the job. If you don't complete the job, you don't get paid for the job.
And so, just to touch on that, I think it's really interesting that that's your compensation structure, motivates your productivity.
Exactly.
But in addition to, previously that must have been a lot of overhead for you, right? In terms of figuring that all out.
Well, that's how it's always been. I don't know how it was before I got there.
Right. Yeah.
How that played out, but that's how it was when I got there.
Yeah.
And that's always been the best because it motivates people to learn how to do more things, the more expensive things.
Yeah.
It motivates them to do more jobs, to work longer, and it weeds out the guys who clock in and clock out.
I was going to say, so you're also attracting entrepreneurs to a certain degree, people that are invested in the business.
Yeah, I mean, we pay them as subcontractors.
And that characteristic of having a go-getter as a part of your team versus I'm just here to collect my paycheck and I'm out.
Yeah. And even the guys that are I'm just here to collect my paycheck, they're gone very quickly.
Because they don't have that self-motivation.
Yeah. They can't deal with it.
That's really interesting.
And they just wanna collect a paycheck. And doing it this way, it just promotes productivity. And if you don't do it that way, then you invite ways to not be productive and still get paid.
Yeah. You invite ways for them to circumvent not working.
Exactly.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh, or how many sick days do I get this year?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And not that.
How often am I sick? It's how many sick days do I get?
And not even that. I think to a certain degree too, it probably even affects the customer service aspect of it too, right? If you're just getting there to get a paycheck, are you really going to go that extra mile to make sure that you upsell that portion of the chimney cleaning or sweeping, or it looks like you need a retooling of your brick here, right, and looking for those opportunities.
Exactly.
It's interesting. I did want to ask you a little bit about customer expectations, right? So for us, we face these challenges. I think with software and technology changing so quickly, people anticipate that technology is going to work out of the box and be really simple. How do you manage customer expectations today? Have you seen customer expectations change over time? How do you feel about that whole customer success and making sure that customers are getting the most bang for their buck and come back to you and are loyal?
With our business model, we don't really worry about that too much. I mean, we don't really get bad reviews. And if there's a problem, we take care of it. And it's handled.
Right.
So
I think that's interesting because you touched on something that I think is new in today's society, right?
it's definitely not a common practice.
Well, but what I guess I'm implying is that customer expectations now, right, have grown, but also I think customers have a bigger voice than they have ever have. You mentioned reviews. You don't get bad reviews, right? But that's something that you have to work hard at that, right? To get those good reviews, to make sure that, you know, those expectations are met, because the possibility of someone going online and bashing the work that, you know, was done can impact your business down the road, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really important thing, you know, in terms of considering, like, so it was
Totally. We've always had that sort of ethos, I guess.
yeah,
Of like
customers always right.
customer satisfaction over anything else.
Yeah.
If we had somebody that was upset or like didn't believe that we did something right or blah blah blah, then okay, like we're in the business of, you know, $150 services. So if we went to that guy's house for $150 and we're going to deal in the office for half an hour with this person on the phone to handle them, to not be upset, well, yeah. And then if they don't handle, they don't resolve, refund them. Like it's not a disaster,
Right.
And that's very rare.
Yeah.
Like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 a year, something like that. But it's not even about $150. It's like to have somebody. The other thing is that word of mouth, even just not necessarily reviews, but yeah, that gives them a voice. But just generally the general view of you as a company in the eyes of the customer is a big deal. Like we've had a lot of people come to us. They're like, "Oh yeah, you know, you were recommended to us from our neighborhood Facebook group."
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
how often do you you do a job, you put a sign on the lawn?
we
Right?
don't even do lawn signs. We probably should, but we don't.
Yeah, maybe that's the next thing. But like, okay, lawn aside, it's like, hey Jim, I noticed you got your chimney done. How was it? And then them just saying, oh, you know what, A1 was fantastic. It was a great experience.
And we get a lot of that.
Right? And that's so, my dad's business was built on that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, in the lawn irrigation contract, it was like, we would go into the street, he would do one property, and then immediately the neighbor would look at the sprinklers working and be like, hey, I want that. Were they good? Right? And then if they were good, if they met that test, then you get the business. So my dad's never advertised, never did the lawn signs either, but his work speaks for itself, right? And how he cared for his customers. You know, I take pride in that. Would you say that was an experience that you shared with ServiceEcho?
Yeah, I would say that.
What were your thoughts?
I would say at the receipt point, like the reason I went with ServiceEcho is because I looked at everybody for months. Service Titan, you know, even the Salesforce Field Service
Lightning.
now, Field Service Lightning. That was very pricey. But, you know, like these out-of-the-box things like House Call Pro, these types of things, right? They're so limited in functionality. And the first thing I asked was, can I take my database with all of my notes and all of my calls for the last 10 years and transfer it over? Oh yeah, you can transfer your database. Okay, so tell me so we'll take all your contacts. Okay, but what about all of the notes and all of the work orders and all of the, oh no. So how do you guys keep that? Well, you'd get it, you'd have to start newly with that. And like we have 30,000 customers. Like it's not, it's a lot. You saw, it was like 250,000 notes and
records and
images, and attachments and images, and yeah, I'm not losing that.
Right.
Not happening.
We have a saying.
Yeah.
Data is gold.
Yeah.
That's going to help you run your business more effectively.
Absolutely. So I went, okay. ServiceEcho was the most in terms of like what I can do, right? And you were offering all of these different customizations, right? So I was like, okay, well now we can talk about this. The only thing that I would change is if I were you, I would charge an upfront setup cost.
Which, by the way, we are doing now.
Good.
But you're the lucky one. You're the lucky one to not have to pay that. But yes,
Because like
you saw the amount of work that it is, right?
absolutely, what I would do is I would, like when I was looking into field service management, and getting pricing and stuff like that, I would have to call Salesforce developers and consultants and these types of things. And here's your price. It's going to be $25,000 to start to program all of this. And I was just like, and then plus it's going to be your Salesforce licenses and field service licenses and all that, which is going to be another $15,000 or $18,000 a year. Yes, it will pay off, but that's expensive.
Exactly.
So I'm like, okay, I don't know if I want to do that. But if there was if you had dedicated specialists that could spend 5 days full-time sitting in a business, making notes, and not saying anything or doing anything, just ghosting, just being the ghost, the shadow in the corner, and going, okay, I see how this is going to work. And then putting together a proposal. And then, because this is what we're dealing with now, and now we're doing it all on the fly. And then putting together a proposal, and then going, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then giving a cost, right? Or having a flat cost, but have it be real, like a real.
Right.
This is what it includes. It includes 40 hours or 60 hours of programming plus blah blah blah. And I would charge 10 or 15 grand for that starting. But then, because then we wouldn't be dealing, like if we had Square set up now, that whole Square integration, it would have made things, the transition a lot easier.
Right.
And figuring out, like right now I'm dealing mainly with collections and trying to figure all that out.
Yeah. Which, at the end of the day, we're going to get to.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I think like what's interesting to your point there was that, like for us, we have this philosophy, right, where, bringing a customer on board, our value and our math in terms of business is that if we're able to keep them as a customer for a long time, and we're there for their success, like you said, now you're able to scale. For us down the road, right, we see this as an opportunity to secure businesses on the ground floor, make sure that we really understand what their business is, understand their process, and then as a result, help them grow so that they get more seats. The company that has maybe 10 trucks on the road today could very well have 100 if they have the right processes in place. So to me, that's a story I want to tell, right? It's not like, I think in software sometimes, and I get it from an economic perspective, I get why bigger companies do this, but for us, I feel as though that's the best story to tell, is to be able to have a customer that you started off on the ground floor with, that not because of you, right? Obviously you're putting in the work, you're hiring the guys, but assisting them to get to that point where they can confidently grow their business and also pinpoint, okay, this is not working, or this specific technician might be lagging and needs some training, right? That to me is a great story to tell. It comes with its challenges, right? Because time and money aren't infinite, right?
Absolutely not.
So sometimes the math doesn't quite work out so well, and we have tough conversations. But we love working with our customers, especially those that, like yourself, Kelley, is we see that there's the impetus for change. There's the vision that is shared. Like we both agree that this is really going to help the business, and that we're in it together. We're in it to win it together.
Totally.
I appreciate that.
The potential, like the people are really the energy, and the tool, like ServiceEcho is the tools that they need to carry out the job. And I don't know if you've ever seen drywallers, right? A drywaller on stilts with a machine is 1,000 times better than anybody with a putty knife and a.
I haven't seen this actually. Like, they're on stilts and they have a pasta machine.
So it's a pump going into and it's pumping
the plaster.
It's pumping the plaster, and they go,
Really?
and it's perfect.
Wow.
They'll go in the corner.
Yeah.
And they'll have a knife with them, and they'll go like that. Oh, there's a dot. Okay, that's
You have to fix or whatever it is.
But I mean, they'll go. They could walk through a place like this and have it done in an hour.
It's amazing.
But it's the tools, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, ServiceEcho has the potential to be that tool, right? We have to.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's important for us is, we don't think that it's like day one you're done and that's it, right? It's always going to be an evolution, with our customers where, they've adopted the basics of the tool, and then there's an opportunity to even grow it further, right? Like the Twilio integration, like the Square integration.
When we first got in there and started changing things just to this garbage 90s software, my dad, who is analog by I just showed him how to use Google Maps, and he still doesn't know how to use it. He's been walking around with a Pearlies, we have to go pick up a check because the postage stripe. We have to go pick up a check in Hamilton. He's terrified because he doesn't have a Hamilton map in his car, So I had to show him how to use Google Maps, and we'll see how he does with it. But anyway, but when we were talking about digitizing things, he was just furious. He can't see. You can't see it's not there in front of you. We would have boxes of people that you would call every month. So this is the January box, the February box, and they just think, and those people, their work orders from the year before would just go into that box, and then you call them the next year in January, and that's how it worked, right? Which is crazy, but whatever, right? So now we had it all digitized.
And just to clarify, it's crazy now, but
it's crazy
back
now.
then, that's what you needed to do, right?
That's what you did.
Yeah.
So changing that, he's just like, it's freaking him out. Now, he makes a joke every day since we've been running the software. We used to have these huge scheduling boards, 10 feet long over here, 10 feet long over here, and they have 100 different work orders on them, showing the schedule, and you can see where everybody is, and that it's busy or not busy. You can see him by how many work orders are on the board. And he walks into the office every day and he goes, "Are we busy?" And he has no idea,
Yeah.
So he's a little freaked out about it. But
there's obviously that fear, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is this going to work, right? I'm so used to this process and this system where, I can look at the board and see if the business is healthy, right?
I've had the same fear to a different degree. But I knew, that this has to be done. It has to be done. The straw that broke the camel's back was when we had a dedicated computer in the back that had all the database on it. And everything started getting slow, and we were like, oh, okay, well, let me go reboot that computer. Reboot the computer, no boot sector.
Terrifying.
You go,
When's the last time I did a backup?
when's the last time I did a backup? Oh, in March, 6 months ago. And you go, okay, well, where are the backups? Oh, they're also on the hard drive. Yeah, Google stopped. It stopped backing up to the Google Drive because Google updated their Google Backup program, and we didn't even know because we never go on that computer. And it was just like, and it took me, it took me 24 hours to go in and, dig into the hard drive and pull out the database and install it on another computer to get it up and running. And we did it, but that was like, okay, forget about it.
Right.
Like, no, we have to go cloud. Like,
No, it makes sense. You're not handcuffed to the hardware anymore. Like everything, because it is so digital, right? You don't. That's the last thing you think about is the drive going down. You know that it's in the cloud. You know it's backed up. You know it's secure. You know you can access it in Europe if you need to on your vacation. So it's definitely a really big value add for sure.
huge.
Yeah. Okay, so I was going to ask you a question, like just in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, right? It's interesting because I think a lot of people experience this where, when I was younger, I want nothing to do with my dad's business. I'll be honest.
Same.
It was like, it's so hard, right? I think, in terms of trades, it's a difficult, laborious business to run. And so when I was growing up, I always had this like idea or passion of starting my own company, but being more technical and like software. I'll never forget, my dad was like probably about 15 years old, and I'm like trying to dig a hole to put a sprinkler in, and I was struggling beyond no belief. And he looks at me, he starts laughing, and he's like, stay in school, right? and so I'll never forget that, for as long as I live. But like, I think your entrepreneurial journey is really interesting. And, for anyone that might listen to this, that is thinking about, okay, I graduated from university, I'm at this point in my life where, what I'm doing in an office job necessarily probably isn't, good for my health, I'm not happy. I really want to take this entrepreneurial leap. And I'm thinking about entering in a trades organization. I think your business model, like what happened where, your dad is aging, is retiring. There's a lot of businesses out there like that. What advice would you give someone if they were thinking about this journey, whether it was, obviously how the experience was for you, like starting off, adopting your dad's business and taking it on, and just some things to be aware of, like where are the challenges they're going to face, but also what are the perks about it, right? Like, I'm assuming that now, like, there's a certain level of pride being able to digitize the business and have it to a point where now it's almost where you can start scaling it and growing it.
Well, it's easy to talk about financially.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit of a workaholic. Mm-hmm. So whether I'm in an office job or not, I'll go the extra mile and do whatever I need to do. In an office job, that is very unrewarded. Mm-hmm. The clock out guys, the guys that are out the door at 5:01, and me who's smashing the keys until 7, we get paid the same. And yeah, you get a feeling that you're more counted upon, but that's it. And in this, the thing about this is that being an entrepreneur is that there isn't a ceiling on what you can do. So,
by the way, I'm going to add a little joke there. There's also no floor.
There's no floor.
You never know.
Die. But I had the opportunity where I could walk into a going concern, and I knew that my skill set would expand that. And it did. It's expanded a lot. Like I said, my dad was having a rough time. He actually sold that house that he was in, and he was in an apartment with my mom. Not a very nice one. And within 5 years, he owned a house outright.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Again, because he was in a
And you had
very big house before.
and you had an important role to play in that.
Oh yeah, and
Oh, that's amazing, Kelley.
yeah, and he had no debt, no nothing, and he was scot-free, right? How are you ever going to do that on a salary? Never going to happen. That's why 25-year mortgages exist. You know? And then what? You're going to... So if you're on a salary, like, so financially speaking, you can do things. And maybe this is not best. Actually, I won't even say it on camera. But
I think one thing
the biggest draws on wealth.
Yeah.
This has been. Don't quote me on this. It's a quote from somebody else. The biggest draws on wealth are the bank and the government. Mortgage. Like I've got a mortgage now. 90%, 95%, no, 98% of the mortgage is interest. So at the end of the day, at the end of this year, I will have paid $35,000 in mortgage, and I'll have made $2,000
in the actual principal balance.
payment.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Well, and it's interesting to me as well. Like, I was listening to this one person who was asked, if you were to start a business tomorrow or give advice to someone that is considering university and going through it, what advice would you give?
Don't go.
Don't go. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, education is really expensive now, obviously, right? It's not so much don't go. I think there's like there's tangibles to going through post-secondary education that are life lessons. But one of the interesting things that they mentioned was, if you could seek out a business where there's a person who wants to sell the business, has gone to that age where they're not really interested in doing it anymore, and are profitable. Sometimes what you could do, like, and this is more in the States, they have something that's called the SBA, like Small Business Association, and there's certain grants for it that help subsidize the purchase of these businesses. But that business itself is an entity.
Yeah.
That business itself has developed a relationship with the bank that might have the ability for you, day one, to go in there and finance the purchase of your business. Of course. So for example, if they're profitable at, let's say, $100,000 a year, going to a bank, getting 2x that, so $200,000, and then turning around to the business owner and saying, I want to buy your business for $250,000, where there's this built-in, equity that banks are able to improve. And here you are at a young, frame of mind. I will say that trades are technology proof. There's no AI that's going to go and fix a chimney right now. Right?
Exactly.
And you're building something that is really, adding to the value of the economy, right? Whether it's making someone's home much better, or providing essential services like heating and air conditioning, or electrical for hospitals, right? So, yeah, I hope anyway, that the idea of trades is shifting. Is like where people are realizing that this is not a dirty job. This is a really honorable profession. That if you do the right things, right, you can really build up your business. And one of the things that he was touching on too is, you go into that business bringing in technology to make it even better, which is what you did, right? And being able to come into that situation, I think, is something that I would advise any young aspiring, go-getter to really go and get it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think that university is bad. But if you're going to get into $100,000 of debt to go to university
For a Bachelor of Arts degree.
for a bachelor's degree, which may or may not land you a job that pays you a decent amount. But okay, let's say you're going to medical school. You want to go to medical school. Okay. So to become a doctor, so a doctor gets paid what? Let's say $200,000 a year. Okay. For example, I don't know, like a starting family doctor type person. So plus they've got to handle their practice and all that stuff. So they're going to have $750,000 in student loans. And if they take $50,000 to survive a year, they're going to be paying that for the next 7 or 8 years, something like this. Like,
It's crazy.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then for what? And then you've gone to school now for 10 years. And now you're going to be, and you were a pauper in school, and now you're a pauper at work for the next 10 years, and then you're okay.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but my wife's from Germany. University is free. It's free. Higher education is free. Everybody gets higher education if you qualify. Like, you have to get good grades, you have to do well. I got good grades. And you get higher education, you get hired.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want any job that isn't McDonald's, you need higher education.
Well, like I think Europe is different in terms of the entrepreneurial appetite. I would say it's
Totally.
it's that's what I love about North America in general, is there is that idea of the American dream, or whatever you want to phrase it, but it really is a system that is opportunistic for those people that really want to create an idea, be creative, make a difference, and very little barriers, right? Like, a lot of people will say that that hope is oversold and stunned, but yeah, I still think it's there, and I really do believe that this transition because there's so many reports with the aging workforce here in Canada and the US. Baby boomers are leaving these positions. They're physical, they're demanding. There has to be like this younger generation that really steps up to fill those huge shoes, because they really, really do move the economy in so many ways, right?
I mean, I just finished the reno on my house, and I can tell you that the quality of work in the trades is way lower than it used to be. Way lower. Like, it's like, come on. And it's because so few people are able to do it anymore. So you can get away with doing a crappy job, and somebody's going to pay you well to do it.
Yeah, and I don't think technology is ever going to replace that person, but I hope what technology is able to do is help train the new staff that's coming in, right?
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to get an 18-year-old to fill out a piece of paper. I don't even know that they can write cursive, to be honest. Right?
Not anymore.
Right?
No. Toronto Star, Life section, September 22nd, 1984.
Wow.
Okay?
Is that you?
That's me right there. Okay?
No way.
And I said,
What do you want to be when you grow up?
yeah. Discovering things is what Kelley Dobson Smith is interested in, so he's decided to be a scientist. I want to discover dinosaur bones because I like digging in the ground and discovering things. Blah, blah, blah. And then it says, but if for some reason Kelley can't be a scientist, he wouldn't mind being a chimney sweep, like his dad. And then my exact quote was, my dad gets all dirty all over when he goes to work. His hands get black and his face gets black and everything. He's a boss, so he tells people what to do, but he still gets dirty. I don't want to get dirty anymore.